everyone, and we are going to start today's meeting with a public information session. We have with us the topic of Marion Avenue Bridge Replacement, bridge number 131017, Marion Avenue over unnamed brook. And we have Mr. Jim Grappone here, who's our town engineer, who's going to lead us through this part of the meeting. Mr. Grappone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council. Thank you for this opportunity to let you see where we're at with the Marion Avenue Bridge over unnamed brook. With me this evening is representatives of BL Company, Ken Rajuan and Chris Mastriano. Not to belabor what's ahead, I'm just going to turn it right over to Ken so he could start the presentation. We'll open it up to questions of the council and the public. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. It's Ken? Ken?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And just for everybody who's here in the room, this will be an open input session. So as we go through this, what we'll do is we'll hear the presentation. We will allow the council and the folks on the dais to ask some questions, and then I'll open it up for a back and forth. If anybody from who's in the room would like to ask some questions, we can have an open dialogue and get some answers for you as well, okay? Ken, it's yours.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. We're just going to kind of get into this. Appreciate the opportunity to be here in front of everyone tonight. So he said, I'm Ken Radziwan. I'm a senior project manager at BL Companies. And with me is Chris Mastriano, who's our senior engineer. Chris and I are actually pretty familiar with the town. We also helped design the Farmington Isle Heritage Trail, the piece that's next to the police station from Lazy Lane to Aircraft Road. And we're working on the next piece, as maybe some of you already know. So we've already done some work in town. I also grew up in town. I still have family here, so this is kind of like near and dear to me. My name is not exactly Smith, so you might know maybe some of my family. So we'll kind of get into it a little bit. But we predominantly work on municipal projects. This is kind of this exact stuff that we do: trails, roadways, bridges, etc. So we're here to talk about the project itself on Marion Avenue. So I kind of highlighted what I think is important. So Mount Southington to the north, Home Depot to the right, because you got 2 Home Depots now. Should be 3. I digress. So we have Marion Ave over an unnamed brook, and I don't believe we're voting on the brook's name tonight, right? No, I'm just kidding. So everyone, I think, is pretty familiar with where we are in Marion Avenue. So the project overview. So clearly we're here to replace the existing structure. The existing structure was built in 1930. It was a stone arch. It is a stone arch, which is actually pretty neat. In 1975, they widened the structure using more modern materials like concrete. So if you go out there now, you'll see some of that. In the image on the top right-hand side, you'll see one of the ends of the bridge, which has what we call CMP, because we're nothing without acronyms. That's a corrugated metal pipe with some concrete head wall. So they use more modern materials to widen the structure. And there's been really just minor improvements over the years. So now we're looking to improve the roadway safety of the area and the roadway drainage. The intent is to make it look very similar, if not identical, to the bridge that was replaced over the Humson Brook just to the north of this project. So here's some kind of cool images. If you walk underneath into the arch, which I don't recommend unless you have this acquired licenses. As I said, as stone arch, the roadway narrows as you get closer to this unnamed brook. There's guide rail on both sides. The guide rail is quote unquote outdated. There's new standards that we follow in our design, which Chris will kind of get into some of that. And there's no drainage structures. I mean, there's no catch basins. We call this sheet flow, so the water just flows off the side of the road, which is fine. But we're looking to make sure that we update that and take care of the water in any kind of rain event. So some of the purpose and need of the project is we, again, want to replace the existing structure, improve the corridor safety. Again, you've already done some work to the north, so we want to bring that all the way down to the south as you get closer, like to the postal office that's not too far away. Kind of beautify the area. Not that it doesn't look nice now, but it certainly can improve the looks of the area. Improve the drainage conditions I just touched on and the roadway itself, so that it's going to work a little bit better. Everyone can hear me okay, right? Mm-hmm. All right. As I say that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
All right, so this is a preliminary concept plan. Well, it's a 30% design plan, but we prettied it up with some colors just to get a good idea. But I didn't know we would be this far away, so let's see if we can do a little bit of this. So our end goal is to replace the structure with a four-sided box culvert. So it's just a square along the length of the structure. And we're also going to install some curbing along the edges of road to capture some drainage, some stormwater runoff. Because we're putting in parapets similar to the Humiston Brook, which kind of look like this. This is what it would look like if you were to view from this angle. So this top piece would be the parapet, the 42-inch wall that protects traffic from going over the edge of the brook, or going over the edge of the structure. So because we're placing a parapet here and a retaining wall, we need to have somewhere for the water to go. So we're going to put new drainage structures with a new outlet into the brook to capture that runoff. There's also some temporary utility relocation that's going to need to happen for this because of the nature of the construction. A large crane has to come in, pick the structure, put it in the hole. So you need to get rid of the aerial wires, so it's going to be relocated up and out of the way of the roadway. And then once construction's coming through, it'll be replaced. New utility pole will be installed, but they'll still be back in line with the roadway. There's another piece of drainage that comes down from the south and outlets. We're just going to reconstruct that outlet and place riprap, large rocks, large boulders for erosion control and slope stabilization and things like that. For roadside safety, we're intending on placing new guide rail where it's required, and having these small curved end walls where it's not necessary for it's far enough away from the road that it's out of the clear zone is what it's called, where we can place a more blunt end and it doesn't require any more safety considerations. The driveway that leads down to the two houses down here is just planned on being reconstructed in the same place. And that's about it for like improvements. It's mostly going to be the same roadway. The roadway is going to be widened to two 12-foot lanes, as opposed to what I believe is like a 10-foot and 11-foot lane right now. So it's a little wider for people to drive on. And then a shelf for the snow to be captured. In the previous condition, you even have less room during snow events, where we have that situation where the plows push it against the roadway as much, or against the edge of the road as much as they can, but in significant snow events, doesn't really have anywhere to go. So utility and access, there's an anticipated detour. I talked about the utility relocation on the previous slide. There's an anticipated detour of up to 2 months. And I have a detour route in the next slide. But basically, it's just to get the construction out of the way as quick as possible. Dig the hole, rip the old structure out, place the new one in, backfill. As opposed to staging construction, which would take significantly longer and would be difficult in this area because of how narrow it is. So this is the detour. Let's see if we can zoom in. So basically, it's going to utilize the same detour route that the Humiston Brook Bridge used, where it's just going to be School Street. So as opposed to our structure is right here along Marion Ave, and it's just to go up and around and down School Street and come back. And again, we could talk about this during the Q&A as well. And then we have potential right-of-way impacts. Well, there are right-of-way impacts for constructing the bridge itself. And they are in the form of a construction easement. So basically, the contractors need to have somewhere to do their work. And the right-of-way, which is this line right here, is insufficient for the work that they're going to need to do at this end of the culvert. The western side is town property. So these two properties are in the process. We're about to notify the two properties that are going to be impacted, and negotiations will be starting soon. And there's a bunch of clearing that may need to be done in this area, this box right here, for sightline improvements and for constructability. And I believe that's it. I'll hand it back to Ken.
Get that man some water. All right. Stay with me. We're almost done. So we're going to go over some of the more of the project specifics, the financials, and the schedule. As you can read here, we're looking for the design to be completed in the spring of 25 here. So we got a couple months until we're going to try to wrap this up. It's probably going to be around June when we'll get the design done. Then from there, we have to work with CROG based on the funding source. CROG is the Capital Region Council of Governments. That's kind of where the funding originated. We're working through a program called LOTSIP. Again, back to acronyms, right? We need acronyms. So local transportation capital improvement plan, that's where the funds have come from. So as it says here, the town is responsible for 100% of funding the design, and 100% of the funding for the construction is from the COG, Council of Governments. So that's, in my opinion, a pretty good deal. The old program used to be an 80-20 split. I think this works out a lot cleaner. We're looking for construction to begin in summer of 25. The anticipation is that we can get the bridge replaced ideally in August, similar to Humison Brooks, so that way you don't have any impacts to school buses. My nephews are on those school buses, so that's important because I'll get yelled at. Or maybe not, I don't know. The estimated cost about $2.19 million. And I guess with that kind of concludes our presentation. So I don't know if anybody has any questions where we want to begin.
Yeah, just for clarification, can you is this north or south of School Street?
This is south.
Just south of School Street, right? So the detour is Old Mountain and School is basically, you're
Yeah.
gonna go up and around either way. Okay, so with that, why don't I turn it over to the council, Chris?
A couple questions. Just to follow up on that question first about the detour. I know you mentioned that you said the road might be too narrow. You have looked at trying to do one lane, keep one lane open, and it's just not feasible?
Yeah, it would be stage construction in that
gonna-
we're using accelerated bridge design construction, which basically gets the contractor in and out. We can open it up to traffic just like we did at the other bridge.
Okay. I'm sure it would extend the time of the construction of the bridge as well.
Correct.
To your point, we want to avoid the buses.
Yeah. You can't do that to the kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What I will say though is that if you do this, the way that we're looking at doing this, right, you're replacing the structure inside, say, a month, maybe a month and a half, depending on the situation that arises. A lot of variables when you open up construction. If you were to do this one-way alternating, what you're alluding to, you're looking between 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
And time and time again, there's research that have been done. The DOT has done actually a study we just got some information of, not necessarily everyone cares, but they find that after a construction project is completed, a lot of folks have been vocal that I wish you just shut the road down for a month and just,
Get it over
we
with.
would have found a detour and figured it out rather than 8 months of my life having this detour. That's typically what we see at the end of a project.
Okay.
But I'm not pushing in one way or another.
So with that, if I can ask, maybe through the town manager, notifying the residents in School Street and Marion Avenue, through maybe using our robocall system, just to make sure that they get plenty of advance notice, so that, because especially School Street as well, there's going to see a lot of traffic there that they normally wouldn't see. It's pretty a quiet area normally. So I just,
We did an Everbridge on the previous,
perfect,
Voyant, whatever they call it.
perfect. And one other
Chris,
question.
just on that topic, can I just add for the town manager? There was some concerns about the speed on School Street. So if there's a way that our chief and the police department can do some sort of signage or force slow driving on School Street and Old Mountain as well, I don't know, maybe cones or whatever it is to constrict the driving so that people aren't driving fast down that road. We know that road is narrow, and I'm sure the residents there are concerned about, the 2 months of significant increase in traffic in that area. So if we can try to at least do our best to make it safer and push people to slow down there when they go, it's not the same size road as Marion Ave, so we would appreciate that. Thanks, Chris.
No problem. Just to follow up on that too, I wonder if, I think the police department has a mobile speed radar unit. There you go. I mean, that might be a good use temporarily on that road, just to make sure residents are really aware of how fast they're
Thanks,
going
Chris.
there.
Yeah.
Yep. Second question is, the total project is the 2.1 million, or is that just the construction cost?
Construction.
Okay, so how much is the design cost?
Ooh, that's a good question. Do you remember?
I want to say 200,000 to 300,000, somewhere around there.
I don't think it was that much, but I think it was closer to 2 than 3.
About 200,000?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm sure it's in the minutes somewhere because you'd had a vote on it as a council.
The 2.1 also includes 10% contingency and a 10% incidentals to construction.
okay. And again, that 2.1 million is completely funded from the LoCIP grant? Okay,
That's true.
great, thank you.
All set, Chris?
Yep. thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Good questions. Anybody else on the dais have questions? No? Okay. Is there anybody from the public who has some questions? If so, just raise your hand and we'll invite you up. Why don't you come on up to the microphone, sir, so that we can capture this in the minutes since we're recording this? And Ken, yeah, if you don't mind, what we can do is, if you can just direct your questions to me, sir, and then what we'll do is we'll have somebody come up and answer the questions at the mic.
Oh, well, you need my name?
Please, name and address for the record.
Name, James Emerson at 1218 Marion.
Thank you.
I'm just listening about the detour. I have a concern. We have tractor trailers coming down Marion Avenue. Are they going to be able to make it up School Street and down Mountain Road?
Okay. Is any other questions?
And I also understand there is going to be, the water on the stream is going to be pumped across to the lower level and not piped. Is there
Okay.
going to be reciprocating pump up there or an electric pump that's going to be
Okay.
going all 24 hours for 2 weeks, or 2 months?
Okay. So we have, what are we doing about water and the tractor trailer traffic?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you guys come on back up and why don't we ask, I don't know if you guys will have an answer on the tractor trailer, but it would be concerning, obviously, on School Street. Yeah, so, maybe there's an opportunity where we could put some signage up that says trucks down Burrett Street or something and have them go around that way to ensure that School Street's not seeing them. I mean, it's steep, it's narrow, the turns, it's just not conducive for it. So if we can look into that, I would appreciate that. And then, Ken, I'll invite you up to talk a little bit more. Do you know anything about the trucks, or did you want to just leave that on the town side? Tractor trailers on School Street.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be challenging. Certainly, when we have detours like this, we will look at trucks and pedestrians alike. But so we do lean on the town. You know your streets better.
Okay.
I mean, you could obviously use the fashion as well, but there's a lot of residential folks there that may not appreciate that. So it's beyond me in a way.
Let's ask our chief
Yeah.
traffic, the chief. and
We're
ask
happy to
him.
help.
Thanks. And then, how about the water? The question was the water gravity feed versus pumping. Can you just talk about that?
Yeah, so the water handling is something that we're looking to design right now. So we have a set of plans here. We should have said that earlier. Invite anybody up. We can take a look at them, and they're here for you folks. So we're looking into the details of how that's going to work. Generally speaking, yes, there is a large pump that's going to pump the water back through the existing arch as we replace everything. It will be noisy, and that's, yes, yep, for a few weeks. The only, so you could, anything could be done, right? I'd have to talk to some of our structural engineers to see if that's feasible.
You gotta relocate the wires, no reason why they can't do it.
Right. But And so there's the challenge in itself, right? We're not talking about your household pump that works on, a 50 amp breaker, right? So you gotta we're pumping thousands of gallons a minute, if not tens of thousands, but not, this is probably closer to 1,000. Yeah, hey. Good.
We're anticipating damming up the water course, placing bypass pipes under Marion Ave. Yeah. We have the plan, the water handling plan. So likely a pump is necessary, but just for groundwater. The plan is to dam up most of the brook and bypass it. So it should not be a 24/7 pipe or a pump situation.
Still noise, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then maybe just take into consideration that any pump that you have, obviously, if it's possible to do electric, that's great. And, the quietest generator that's required to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah. It all depends on whether the capacity of the electrical pump is possible or not. So we ask you guys to do that if possible, right?
Yeah, and we do talk about that at the inland wetland when we go through permitting. They'll be talking to us about that as well.
Okay, but you understand the concern.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
noise.
And, I don't know, Jim, if they do have to use a louder device for the pump system, is there a way to shield it? So just, if you can take that and.
Yeah. I honestly think that we didn't use any type of pumping on the previous project. It was a
Humiston Brook.
It was a gravity pipe that was put in
Okay.
by a coffer dam, and it would just flow right out.
Fingers are crossed. Okay,
Yeah, we'll look into it.
thank you. And we have the gentleman's name and address on the record, so if there needs to be a communication there, we can connect you. Okay, anybody else in the room that would like to ask a question? Just come on up and state your name and address, sir.
Yes, Pete Anderson, 1177 Marion Avenue, right next to where this work is going to take place.
Welcome, Mr. Anderson.
I've lived next to the existing bridge since 1976. Would love to see the current stone arch rehabilitated or replaced with something similar to complement the National Historic District, which this bridge is in. But given that we're going to have a replacement bridge, I've expressed these concerns before, but I'd just like to reiterate them. If possible, that the new design slow traffic. You've been concerned about the speed on School Street. You wouldn't believe the speed coming over the hill and down to that bridge on Marion Avenue. So that's a concern. If there's anything that can be done to enforce the 30-mile-an-hour limit there, that would be a good step. The second thing is pedestrian safety in both directions. I think I heard that the street will be a little bit wider than it is today, and it will also have a shelf that will, at least in the good weather, be pedestrian-friendly for walking next to the street. So that's important. In today's world, there's two really tight pinch points, one going in each direction where the guardrails force you to walk into the street. And my last concern is the choice of the materials. It sounds like it's going to look like the bridge over Humiston Brook. That's great. I would like to see as aesthetically sensitive, not shiny guardrails, something more in line with what was done down on Humiston Brook. And then I guess my last question, I saw somewhere that there's a state-federal meeting on March 20th, a coordination meeting, and I'm just curious if that's open to the public, and if so, where and when.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. We'll get those answered for you. Ken, you want to? So I'll go down the list.
Yeah, thank you.
Arch restoration, any opportunity to, do a veneer or something on there to kind of make it look like it was?
You could, yeah, for sure. So we call that like stone cladding. It really just comes at the expense of construction.
Okay. Is it something you can do afterwards?
It covers 20% of beautification. Yeah. Sorry.
I was saying, would it cover it? And then also, I know we
Yes.
have a contingency, so if we were on budget, could we use part of that for that type of restoration.
Yeah,
So
and-
that's something to monitor as we go through the project. Slowing traffic at the bridge, one thing I know we can do is talk to the chief and find out if we can get some of those digital signs. So, maybe this would be an ideal area to look at for an investment for one of those, given the hill that's there and the straight, sort of curvy, but straight road in that area. I think it may be a good candidate for one of the digital signs that are solar powered. And then how about on the design side, anything that you're considering for additional traffic mitigation, rumble strips, or anything that,
No, we don't. So there's traffic calming measures. There's nothing that would really come into play here, other than curbing, believe it or not. It's because driving is a perception. So when you feel uncomfortable, you slow down, right? So if there's like narrow roads in town and, start getting like Long Bottom Road up by the lake and stuff, and it starts getting where the trees are coming, you slow down. In this case, enforcement is usually what we look towards for something like this. The geometry of the road here is straight. I mean, you can look and see right there. And there's not much more we can do in this particular situation. There are rumble strips, but that's not necessarily going to slow anybody down. I don't know if Dave would want to start putting speed humps on your roads. Your plow guys would kill you.
yeah.
So there's not
I know the
really-
chief doesn't like speed humps.
Exactly.
So then, so we'll have the chief also look at that when it comes to the safety, Mr. Town Manager. Pedestrian safety and materials. I'm sorry, Jim, did you want to say something?
Yeah, maybe we could, and I think there'd be a double center line stripe, and then probably a shoulder, white shoulder. So maybe we could have a wider shoulder, to give the impression that we're narrowing the roadway, even though it's not, it's 30 foot. 12 feet at least in each direction, maybe go to 10 or 11 and have a wider shoulder. So we could look into that.
That'll be good, thank you. And you also are going to have the snow shelf on top of that as well, so you'll have opportunity for passage. And then can you just confirm the materials as compared to the Humiston Brook Bridge, including the guardrail?
Yeah, so the guardrail, right now, we have MASH. Yeah. We can look at what's called steel, I said this before, steel back timber guide rail is something that we can look into. It just increases the cost. So it looks, the Merritt Parkway, if you've been on the Merritt, it looks like that, but I can't call it that because I get in a lot of trouble. So it's called steel back timber guide rail. See that 3 times fast. So it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the big wood that you might have, say like Rec Park, but there's steel behind it, so it's crash compliant. So it will look aesthetically more pleasing if that's kind of what you're looking for than shiny guide rail.
Let's work with the town engineer on that to
Yeah.
ensure that it falls within the cost guidelines as well, but,
Yeah, it's more expensive.
let's see what we can do, Jim. Okay, and then the last one was the state and federal meeting, March 20th. Is it open to the public?
So that's getting moved. I don't know if it's open to the public. I would imagine it is. No one ever wants to go to those meetings. That's a great question. Well, it's a permitting meeting, so it's an ICM, interagency coordination meeting. So basically, we discuss permits, which is not that exciting. So I don't know.
Can I ask you to follow up with our town engineer
Yeah.
this week? And then maybe one day next week, if you can contact the town engineer's office, he'll probably have and maybe Mr. Peterson, we can reach out to him or have him reach out to your office and get the answer one day next week.
Yeah,
I think it got moved to April.
it did get moved to April, but we'll find out.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from those who are here?
Paul, before we move
Chris,
on,
go ahead.
Just to follow up on Mr. Anderson's question again, there was talk about the arch, and I heard 20%. So is it only 20% reimbursable for the LoSiP grant if we decide to keep that beautification there?
It depends on how they classify, and that's something I'd have to look into. But for the LoSiP allows you to have 20% beautification on project, and those are usually like streetscape amenities, trash receptacle cans, benches, lighting, stuff like that. That's not necessarily for the safety of the public.
Okay.
So an arch, putting stone cladding on it isn't necessarily helping the safety or encouraging the safety of the public. So
Maybe it's just restoring back the historical intent of the bridge
Correct.
and restoring it back to the original.
it's creative writing at that
Right,
point of how
right.
we sell that, but for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And I will say the materials, so the Humiston Brook has what we call form liner on the concrete, so it looks like a rustic brick type look, so that's what we're going for to match it at the moment.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe another suggestion, how about, I think a cornerstone is usually put on the bridges, is maybe we can use some of that historic arch rubble or material and use it as a
Reuse some
cornerstone.
of it, yeah. Please look into that. We would appreciate that.
Yep.
Okay, sir, come on up. Just your name and address.
Good evening. Mike Allison, 1200 Marion Avenue.
Mr. Allison.
Two-part question. So curious on the, how much of the property, that it is my property where the trees will need to come down. So again, it feels a little subjective right now, how far back we're going to need to go. So a part of that, of the other brook, if you plan for 10 feet in the, of how much was needed to come back, how much did you actually use? And of the design so far, call it 30%, how far into my property are you going to cut down? Because again, that's privacy for me from the road to the street. Second part is, my neighbor and I's driveway. Obviously, we expect some disruption there. We know the apron for right now, but the driveway did just get redone less than 2 years ago. If anyone's done that recently, it is not that cheap. So I'm looking forward to hearing what the materials are, if there's any heavy equipment that's going to be used to coming down and back and forth in the driveway. If there is impact, do we have a chance to kind of point some of that out? So two-part question.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. It looks like they're conferring over there.
I believe.
Sure, Jim's going to start us off.
Yeah, I'll start off.
Jim, it was how much of the property is needed, how much, like if you say you're going to take 10 feet on the last one, how much did they actually take? Is your estimate accurate? And then also, how much vegetation will be cut?
Yeah, I mean, BL.
And then the
can
apron.
answer the width of it, but I do know that the state DOT rights-of-way is handling the right-of-way phase. So they're in the process of getting things, they'll send a letter of intent out to the residents that are affected, and they'll meet with the residents. Then after that, an offer will be made, because it's a temporary easement, not a permanent take. So I don't know if you have any more.
So you're saying that the DOT will inform them personally?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so initially, this is basically, this area right in here is a grading and work area kind of thing. And we show a larger easement just to cover anything that could, that may need to occur where the crane might have to finagle a way in or out. It's anticipated from this right-of-way line, not much farther back, if it's 5-10 feet. The clearing is definitely a concern, and it would be as minimal as possible, just to get the structure in. I believe that would be the biggest reason for clearing, because we are widening here. There's a tree line right here, which in reality kind of does a little zigzag down, which would be like the beginning of the trees. So from that tree line, it may be 15 feet, potentially, depending. But it could be much less depending on where the crane is able to maneuver. I mean, the intent would be to cheat on this side, obviously, but it's more getting down and doing the work down here. So because we're widening the roadway, there's going to be some tree clearing for sure. But the clearing beyond this right-of-way line is as needed, not intended to be crazy clearing. I can get you a better answer from our bridge guys to see if they have any larger idea of what that is.
And these, the presentation will be in our meeting minutes, so you'll see the gentlemen's names on there as well. So I think, if you need to do follow-up through the town engineer's office, and you can reference their names but it sounds like they're gonna come out and meet with you, which I would encourage definitely going and walking it and marking things out, and make sure you take pictures of what it looks like today.
Yeah.
Who's paying again?
DOT is going to contact you directly. So they own the right of way to that. So it sounds like what they're going to do is call you, talk to you about how much that they're going to take, and they're probably going to go out on site and talk with you about it. Val?
Just a quick question. How many homeowners how many properties are being impacted?
Two.
1,200 and,
It sounds like Mr. Ellison, is that what you said?
Allison?
Right here, this would be your property, right?
Yep.
And then, I
And then
can't
the
read
ne-
that right, it's on the plan. Yeah, right there.
1210, 1210, right? Okay.
Yep,
So we'll just make sure that they should be talking with both.
exactly.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
to answer the question about the driveway reconstruction, it would just be to basically catch grade. This is all within the right of way. It's basically just an apron, replacing the apron from fully cutting open the road. It's full depth reconstruction from this line to this line. So needs to be some sort of reconstruction back for the driveway.
But it sounds like any damage to the apron is going to be fixed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it would just be bituminous concrete again, the asphalt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Emerson, you want to come on up? I'll say- The question, just for those who are remote, if I can just, what is the slope? Mr. Emerson's asking again, what is the slope going to look like?
On the downside of. Oh, right now, it's basically a drop-off right behind that guide rail. So this slope along if you're parallel to the riverbank, it would be a 2-on-1 slope going down where these boulders are on the screen, where these rip-rod and the boulders are. Yeah, and then it's just a matter of catching grade. It's pretty steep here, but it's more of a retaining wall. That's why this retaining wall is so long. It's to catch that grade and grade it at something that's steeper than. Right, yeah. That's why on this elevation, you can see that the wall is not insignificant. It's pretty high. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Sir, come on up.
How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Doug Kobe, 1190 Marion Avenue. I share the driveway with Mike Allison. Just wanted to ask if I could also be included, if there's any anticipation of my address being added on to the discussion with the DOT. If you look at the property lines, the driveway is not really a 50-50 shared driveway. Mine's probably 90% of that. And then my second question is, I met with somebody earlier in the project, and they discussed a possible utility interruption to our two properties. My understanding was that the utilities that come from across the street could not be spliced into our existing utilities that then run down our driveway to our underground box, which is probably 100 feet or more down, or 200 feet maybe down the driveway. So the question is just whether any of that has changed and the utilities will be spliced at the road where the apron will be replaced, or whether they then have to further cut all the way down our driveway to ensure that utilities and service are maintained.
Okay. Jim, you probably got the first one right. The names. I'm sure you have the names of everybody in this area, but if you can just
Yeah, we'll
ensure a
check the
constant. Yeah. Is it Mr. Colby?
Kobe, C-O-B-Y.
C-O-B-Y, and it's Doug. Thanks, Doug.
So the pole line across the street has a conduit, electrical conduit that runs under the street. We had a utility coordination meeting with Eversource. There was some question on the exact location. It wasn't marked out on private property. So I think there's still some fact-finding that needs to be done with the utility companies, and then we'll decide how they're going to do the work, splicing, not splicing, and things of that nature.
So you'll contact Mr. Colby and Mr. Allison on that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so the intent right now, so the existing pole, it's hard to see on this one. This is really light line. On this plan over here, you can see it better. But that existing pole is right here, and it definitely needs to come out and be moved. So that's where the drop for this underground utility line that services both you guys is here. So the intent is to, before anything happens, any other construction, is to relocate this pole cut conduit under and splice basically where we're tying in for the other driveway and maintain that utility, basically move the service from this pole to this pole. And this pole is going to stay there as opposed to going back. These other utility poles, this pole here, this pole here, it would be a temporary pole. But this one, because we're cutting under, putting new conduit, it's the intent right now from the design side. The utility companies may have some other plan for it. That's the intent right now. So if there's any, there should be very minimal interruption in service, and it should be done before anything else starts. Yeah.
We don't want to cut your driveway. Let me just be clear with that. When we were out there in the field and it was very hot that day, let me tell you, we noticed where your splice box was, and we were like, we can't do that because it's private property. So we do want to talk to you, though, because we don't actually know, not to get into details, but where the conduit is for your driveway. We don't know if it's to the left side or the right side, you know what I mean? So we were trying to figure out where a logical spot would be to put a handhole in so that we could splice. So if you don't mind, like, talk.
Maybe you guys can exchange before you leave contact information to be sure that you're, everybody's aligned and on the same
All right.
page. Thanks for coming, you guys. We appreciate that. Cool. Anybody else on the dais? How about those in the audience? Anybody that's here? Sure, sir, come on up. Oh, ma'am, please. Okay, that's great.
Sorry, I got here a little late. My name's Kevin Copstis. I live on 1180 Marion Ave.
What's your name,
which
sir?
is Kevin Copstis.
Okay.
I live right across the street from the Andersons. I don't know if you guys mentioned it before, but the drainage in that area right now is not the greatest. I mean, the water table in that area is pretty high. So, anything you could do to alleviate some of the water when we do get a soaking rain, I'd appreciate it, especially if you're going to put in some kind of temporary drainage. Make sure that it's low enough where it's not affecting any homeowners. So, but if you could try to, help with the drainage issue, because it seems like it's getting worse every year in that area. So I don't know if that's more of a town issue, but whatever you can do to try to help with that, remediate the water issue in that particular area while you're doing the project would be appreciated. Because it does get really, that area gets soaked, and it's at the bottom of the mountain, so, thank you.
Yep. We did, I'm not sure if you were here yet or not, but they did talk about some of the water management from sheeting off of the roads to try to control that. They were going to put some additional curbing in and some catch basins to help redirect the water into the stream. Ken,
You're making my life easy, yeah.
see that, huh?
Yeah.
I'm listening.
I'm not going to have a job after this.
Excellent. Ma'am, did you want to come on up? Sure.
Good evening, I'm Margaret Anderson,
Hi, Margaret.
1177 Marion Avenue. I travel with that guy. It's worked out well for me all these years. I noticed that at the top of my remarks for tonight, it says Marion Avenue Bridge over unnamed brook, AKA the Bishop Brook. I have spent the greater part of 2 days searching all my archives to find the paper where it's known as the Bishop Brook. I can't find the paper, but I recall it had to do with a court case between one of the residents on Marion Avenue and the state of Connecticut DOT for interrupting and damaging the flow of the Bishop Brook. So, hey, you guys want to run with it? It's fine with me. Okay.
Either the Bishop Brook or Anderson Brook, right?
Well, hey,
Mr.
here-
Del Santo's trying to get it Del Santo Brook.
Nah. I gotta say, years ago when we were involved in inland wetlands, Stu Ramsey, who was on the commission at that time, labeled it our brook, because every time Pete and I got up to speak, we'd say our brook. So you can run with that one too. Okay, so I had 3 points to make. The first one is on the bridge facade, that it's in harmony with the one over Humeston Brook. We've already addressed that. I'm good with that. Both abutting properties at 1210 and 1177 are listed as contributing properties to the Marion National Historic District established in 1989. I ask that the design and the guardrails be sensitive to these two historic properties. My next point, I am submitting 2 photos to show that there are existing buildings on this site in 1904, and this is on the southwest side. The Marion Community Association asks that any unearthed artifacts be entrusted to the association for display in their museum room at the Marion Schoolhouse. And I'm right next door. Whatever you guys dig up, I'll be happy to take a look. I'll turn this in as evidence. These are the 2 pictures from 1904. This is on the southwest side. You're looking up into where our house is. And the other one is a picture of 1210 Dennis Ritchie's house. And you can see it sits very close to the street. It's even closer now because the street's a little wider now that cars have to pass. So I'm going to enter those. I have another question.
Is that for the record?
Sure.
We can give it to-
Yeah, you could, when you're done, you can give it to the clerk over there.
I'm fine with that. Okay, so the other thing is, we sold to the town a few years ago the adjacent property. And it's
Thank you.
designated as a wildlife corridor. So this culvert that's going under the road, is that going to be big enough for the deer and the bear to pass through? Because, I mean, we see them, they come up, they stand by the edge of the road, and it's like, nah, this isn't going to work today. And down they go, down the brook, under the road. So, okay, and I got to tell you guys the best part of this whole plan? Bridge completed by August, peace and quiet for 2 months. Yes. Anyway, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, Mrs. Anderson. So, Jim, if we could take a note, I mean, I think this also gives a little bit of, you know, it helps us also if there's a little bit of money to be spent on ensuring that the facade, the brickwork, maybe continues to represent what it looked like in the past. So, you know, we obviously can't spend millions of dollars on this, but if there's a small amount of money that we need to appropriate to respect the history there and, you know, make it look similar to the way it was in the past, we'd like to know what that would cost so that
Sure.
we can discuss that.
We can look into it.
And then the artifacts is important as well.
Yeah,
If
I
we can
believe
find a way.
on the first section, we had to get State Historic Preservation Office approval. As part of that, it may require a reconnaissance survey by an Indiana Jones type of person to go out there, dig some areas to see if there are artifacts. And Clark Bolt area, there was, for the first project, some artifacts that were recovered and given to the Historic Society.
Thanks. And is
So
there a process in
I believe a
place?
similar study.
And then if, you know, throughout the construction process, obviously, if there's something, some sort of review that, as they're going, that there's a periodic review of what's being removed.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Anderson.
I just wanted to answer the bear question, though. So the culvert, it's going to be 10 feet wide and 7 feet tall.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
So I think so.
I haven't seen a bear that big yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen, yeah.
He'll have to crouch, but, yep, okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Wonderful. Is there anything else from the staff's perspective that you guys wanted to wrap up with?
No, thank you. Good dialogue and feedback from the public, and we'll take those comments and move them forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great work, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay. We are now going to move into our regular business meeting of Monday, March 10th, 2025. It's 7:51 PM. We got to change the clock, Mr. Town Manager. If we can do a roll call, Madam Clerk. For those who came earlier and you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, it's riveting, so stick around. Thank you. Sorry, Madam Clerk.
Jennifer Clark,
Here.
Michael Del Santo.
Present.
Valerie DiPaolo. Here. William Diedzik.
Here.
James Morelli.
Here.
Tony Morrison.
Here.
Christopher Palmieri.
Here?
Jack Perry.
Here.
Paul Chaplinsky.
Here, we have a quorum. We have Councilman Dietzick and Councilman Perry are here, but they're remote. If everybody can please stand for the prayer and the flag salute.
Heavenly Father, we ask that you would keep your hand upon us as we commit ourselves to the citizens of Southington. We pray for wisdom and clarity in our decision-making, and we humbly ask for your continued blessings upon Southington. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we are looking for a motion to approve the minutes of our last town council meeting, February 24th, 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the February 24th Town Council meeting.
Second.
Chris and Mike, any discussion on that? Okay, if you're remote, please put your phone on mute. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, sorry. Excellent. Any opposed?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to be abstaining.
Okay, so Councilman Perry is going to abstain,
I will abstain as well.
and Councilwoman DePaul is abstaining, so the motion passes 7-0-2. Okay, before we move on, what I'd like to do is I'd like to move the executive session to the end. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to entertain a motion to change Agenda Item 3, Executive Session Pending Litigation, CGS 1-200, 6B, and I'd like to renumber it to item number 12, and all of the items that are 4 to 12 on the original agenda, move them up one earlier. So I'm looking for a motion for that.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second?
We have a motion and a second from Councilwoman DePaulo. Any discussion on changing and putting the executive session at the end? Just from my perspective, because we were going to have a bunch of people here, I thought it would be good to not have everybody wait with all the presentations at the front. So we'll move the executive session to the end to ensure that the folks that are here are not waiting for another 30 to 45 minutes while we were in executive session. Okay, any other comments or suggestions? Hearing none. All in favor on the change?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to item 3, Department Head Introduction. David LaPrey, Highway, Parks, Recreation, and Youth Services.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming out.
I know the town manager's office did send out an email with this packet. I'm sending it around now so you can reference, but just want to get it out to you. So I'll try to be as quick as possible, but thorough. I know you guys have a long night tonight. So quick overview of myself. I do know most of you. I have worked for the town for a little over 29 years. Graduated with a bachelor's degree in finance, have a master's degree in park and rec management. I began working for the town of Southington in 1995. Had a brief stint using my finance degree for about a year or so. Wasn't my cup of tea. Got back into parks in 1995. Through the years, worked my way up the ladder to foreman. In 2010, I became the assistant superintendent of parks. In 2011, I took over as director of recreation. Been there doing that since and currently still doing that. In 2022, with some realignment in town, I also took over director of the Calendar House as well as youth services. In September of 2024, I was appointed the interim superintendent of highway and parks, and that became official in November. So my current role is superintendent of highway, parks, and recreation, as well as director of youth services. So just a quick overview of myself. I'll start off with the youth services department. Staff, including myself, there are 4 other employees. John Ismail is the youth service coordinator. John Sperduti and Susan Williams are 2 of the counselors, and Megan Albanese is the prevention coordinator. Department overview, their main goal, they work with children and families throughout the community in a variety of different capacities, those being youth counseling, Programming, they are involved with the Juvenile Review Board, truancy cases, and attendance support engagement team. Truancy is students that miss a lot of school for a variety of different reasons. They get involved in that. And also the STEPS Coalition, Megan Albanese oversees that, which is substance misuse prevention and asset building. The department does have a lot of support from the town budget, but they do rely on a lot of grants, those being DCF Enhancement Grant, JRB Grant. STEPS operates using many different grants, a few of them opioid settlement funds, Prevention in Connecticut Communities, Partnerships for Success, and Smart Management and Recovery. The department does work closely with the Board of Ed. Our counselors are in the schools daily. They oversee about 30 students each, if not more. And our youth service coordinator floats around from school to school, handling a variety of different issues with students. So, quick overview of youth services. I don't know if you guys have any questions with that. I'd be glad to entertain it.
Any questions on youth services?
Actually, just, Dave, just who writes, do you have a grant writer, so someone on staff, or?
No, nobody on staff. We just have a grant that was applied for, and Megan, it went out for RFP, and we utilized a person who has written grants before, but nobody on staff yet.
Nobody on staff.
Smaller ones they can, but
Right.
some of the
But
larger
the
ones.
larger ones, because those can get very
They could get
complicated.
in-depth, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep,
We have used the outside service, right? Somebody external
correct.
who helps us with that. And then
And there are
there's a-
some Board of Ed folks that can help out at times, but like I said, for the larger ones, we will go private with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Moving on to recreation, staff there, myself as director, and most recently, we did implement and hire a new employee who is also, his title is Assistant Superintendent of Highway and Recreation. This is a new position in the restructuring that happened back in November. So not along with handling a lot of park stuff, this individual will also help with Julia and myself for a lot of our recreation needs, which is going to be a true asset. Julie Berardinelli is our administrative assistant. Quick overview of the rec department. We provide quality recreational programs and facilities to our residents. That's our main goal. We plan and implement many different youth and adult programs and activities throughout the year. We oversee part-time seasonal staff in the 80 to 100 range. Being three of us, we don't have a lot of full-time folks for it, so it could be lifeguards, referees, counselors, et cetera. We also manage the rentals of town fields, including the community turf field. All those rentals for the turf field come through our department. We assist and work closely with the youth town leagues as far as field scheduling, coordinating space in the schools. That comes through our office because we are sponsors of them, so their rental fees are waived, et cetera. So we do handle a lot of that. Manage rentals of park pavilions, oversee permitting of the town space, any town space for special requests. We get town greens for weddings, Crescent Lake for weddings, could be anything, just use of any town space. Permits come through our department. The signboard on the town green, that's all through us. We work closely with a variety of different nonprofit groups. We work in conjunction with them, businesses and community stakeholders. Couple of things to mention here at the end. We just recently implemented a new software program for our website. It's called myrec.com. This went into effect about 6 months ago. Brought us, I would like to say, into the next generation here with technology. Has been working fantastic, streamlines things, so that's a great addition to our rec department. And one thing to mention also is most of our programs about 7 years ago, and I'm not sure if some of you folks know this, previous to when I got on, all of our programs were budgeted right through our general budget, town general budget. Shortly after I came aboard, we created a rec fund, which is self-supporting, took all that money out of the general budget, lowered it by approximately $600,000. So all of our programs are run through the rec fund. They operate on no tax dollars. It's a revolving account, so it's self-supporting. So I'm not going to go through all the programs here. They're in your packet, but these programs listed here, this was an example of what we did in 2024. There are close to 30 programs. A lot of community special events such as Halloween in the Village, downtown Christmas events. Obviously, everybody knows Music on the Green, so I'm not going to go through them all, but close to 30 programs throughout a year is very comparable to some bigger cities, and with a staff of 3, I think it's a great job by us.
Any questions on recreation? Anybody? Anybody remote have questions? No? Okay.
Right, moving on lastly to Highway and Parks. Department overview, responsible for maintaining town roads, parks, public spaces, and municipal buildings. Obviously, snow removal, treating of the roads. We operate the transfer station. Fall leaf pickup, assist the public with daily calls and inquiries. That may sound not too overwhelming, but I would say on a day-to-day average, we probably get 15 to 20 calls, if not more. So our schedules what we start off with at 7 a.m. in the morning, a set schedule, that shifts on a dime with a phone call. So we're always very attentive to, when we get those calls, get our staff out there and take care of things. Support for community events and municipal projects, as well as assist other town departments, be it removing desks, helping out with the time clocks for the newly implemented paychecks. So our department does a lot of help with other departments. This department staff consists of 35 individuals, including myself. As I mentioned, the newly hired Assistant Superintendent of Parks and Rec, and we also have a Superintendent of Highway, Brandon Petito. David Voisin is the Assistant Superintendent of Parks and Rec, and then the rest of the crew. So 35-member staff. Winter months, snow plowing. This past year, we had 14 snow events compared to 6 last year. Weren't major snowstorms, but the ice was the tricky part this year. So we covered 210 miles of roads, and we maintain those. For winter and plowing, all the parks and municipal parking areas, downtown parking lots, municipal buildings, fire department, police department, library, Barnes Museum, Calendar House. Take care of about 50-plus locations of sidewalks ourselves with our park staff. That does not include school access walks that we contract out. And then the linear trail as well, from Noto down to Curtis Street. Additional responsibilities in the winter, downtown snow removal. You folks know we were on some email change where we went downtown, we clear the snow when it builds up off of Center Street or North Main Street to make way for parking. I mentioned the school access walks, a lot of mailbox inspections due to damage. We maintain during the winter when we can, detention and retention ponds, outfall inspections, and a lot of roadside trash. That has become a major issue in town. I would say on a weekly basis, we have staff out there 3 times a week. We've broken into quadrants trying to keep up with that. It's unfortunate, but our staff is out there, like I said, a few times a week, taking care of roadside trash. Maintaining Crescent Lake for ice fishing and Memorial Pond for ice skating, checking those daily. This year, first time in probably 3-4 years, we had ice skating. Lasted about 3.5 weeks at Memorial Park, and Crescent Lake was open for ice fishing. Staff prunes all the trees downtown, as well as trees in parks, and all the trees complaints that come in from the public are, we have acting tree wardens, both DJ and Brandon. So those folks will go out there when we get calls, inspect the tree, decide what needs to happen. Our mechanics maintain all of our vehicles themselves for the most part. And during the winter, they're also servicing all of our leaf equipment, getting that ready for the spring. Winter cleanup, a lot of repairs to curbs and aprons. Pothole repair. I mean, with this last ice storm, it just did a job on the roads. We're out there right now, constantly every day repairing potholes, and that will continue even through the year, outside of the winter months. Sweeping debris from roads, or sweeping of roads, breakdown of holiday decorations from the Christmas time event in the town greens. And then at this time of year, we're prepping for the road projects coming up for the summer months, working closely with the engineering staff as we did this year. It was a group team effort. Our folks will get out there on the roads, visualize those, see what's needed, verify what's needed, and move forward from there. Inspect and clean drainage basins and perform necessary drainage repairs. Springtime. Inspect playgrounds for any broken parts and make the repairs. Mowing, weed whacking, replacing picnic tables and grills, getting those ready for the summer months. And also reopening all the restrooms in the springtime. We work closely with the water department in reinstalling all the meters. Those will hopefully go in within the next few weeks, so we'll be coordinating that. Fix all the broken pipes, as well as open up both pools and splash pads for an early June opening time for those. Prepping and planting the beds for flowers, mulching those areas, as well as getting the showmobile ready for Music on the Green, which starts at the end of May. I'm not going to go through a lot of this much more in depth. Taking care of fields and grooming those in the parks for our programs to the rec side. Cleaning the linear trail, mowing the trail, all the open spaces, all the roadside areas for sight lines, line striping the fields for the drive-in, maintaining the irrigation systems in all the parks. Let's see. Summer, spring, that's about it. So, like I said, there's a little bit more there, but I'm not going to bore you with all of it. Fall time, we move into our leaf program. We have 4 zones, as you all know. We'll repeat the first zone a second time. Now that's guaranteed. This year we try to get out there as long as we could, pick up all the leaves we can that are on the roads to our best of ability before the snow flies. Also in the fall, we'll close and winterize the town pools and splash pad, winterize the restrooms, all the irrigation in the parks. Staff assist with the setup for the Apple Harvest Festival as well. They do a lot of work with that, and I mentioned the getting ready for the holiday programs. Year-round duties, and I'll end with this. They include transfer station, weekly trash in all the parks, downtown areas, linear trail, tree work, pothole repair, catch basin repair and replacement, road drainage repair, street sign replacement, removal of dead animals. We get those calls weekly too. Staff takes care of that. Calls from the public, as well as a little last side note, we assist with evictions in town when we're called by sheriff. Our staff will assist them. We do have a storage unit on site. If any furniture or anything needs to come back, we handle that at the highway department and store it for a bit. So, a couple of things that mentioned recently that we did at Recreation in Panthorn Park. Both ponds were overgrown extremely badly, in my opinion. We went in, we cut the overgrowth away, left some of it around there for wildlife. In the back here, you'll see pictures of Panthorn Park. That was the worst. We took out 40 to 45 truckloads of silt, and we improved the drainage all the way around the pond, coming into the pond. Behind that, there's a dam. We replaced most of that, repaired it, cleared out that stream coming in, widened it to the original state it was at about 20 feet. So right now, you're looking at what it used to look like probably about 20, 25 years ago. So we still have a little work to do there to plant grass and get it looking nice for the springtime, but we'll be doing that in the coming weeks.
Panthorn Park looks great.
Does.
Rec
Came
Park
out
looks
fantastic.
great. I mean, it's amazing, and now it's cut back. So the challenge now is to make sure that we maintain it, so it doesn't get out of control. But it's amazing. It looks gorgeous, and I'm hoping that the residents will see it this spring and go out there and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And do some fishing and take
Yeah,
their
that's
kids
a
and
good-
grandkids.
That's a
and-
goal of mine too, now that the pond is usable again, getting the fishing derbies back again. So that's on our radar.
Nice job.
Yep. Any questions? I'd be glad to answer them.
Who has a question?
Just a comment. I talk a lot with Mr. LaPre about different projects throughout town, and one thing I can say about Dave is that he always finds a way to get it done. I never hear, nope, can't happen. Every time I call him, I bother him, actually. Work on the town green or any type of programs in town. He always makes a way to work, always finds a way to make it work, and I appreciate that, Dave. And,
Thank you.
We've heard recently, even through Public Works, that, there's a new regime now, and the personalities and the attitudes that work with the public now have changed, have shifted to the good. So I appreciate that. And Dave has a good relationship with our residents. As a lifelong resident, he does a really good job. So thank you, Dave. Good stuff.
Yeah, and lastly, we, in all of our departments, but, Highway Parks is the most visual. We have a great staff up there. My goal coming in was to create a culture that, they take pride in what they're doing. We work for the public, we got to treat them with respect. We got to listen to them. So I think we're getting there. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I couldn't be happier with the staff there as well as all the other departments.
Dave, my philosophy on the parks, including the linear trail, the two town greens, Rec Park and Panthorn, all the shared spaces that are parks or semi-parks, Crescent Lake, all the trails, is that not everything is, there are a few things in town government that everybody utilizes, right? I would say our parks and our town greens are accessible to everybody.
Right.
Everybody who can get to them. And so I want them to be the crown jewel of the town. Our town green and our park should be impeccable, pristine. And people, I'm hoping, because I know people from out of town come and enjoy those. Hopefully, we can continue to be the talk of the area with the beauty that our parks have had and will continue to have. So, thank you for.
And you'll see
sharing
some improvements over I would say by the fall, you're going to see on the linear trail the overpasses, the Farmington Canal overpasses. We're going to repair those, paint those, freshen them up, repair the bridges on the trail, the park buildings. They need a repainting. We're going to freshen those up. We want everything to flow nice. So we have a game plan. It's going to take a little bit of time, but that's our goal.
Town green,
we
light,
get folks
light
coming in from all
poles,
over.
trash cans,
Exactly.
All that stuff is, they're metal. They are gonna wear. They're gonna chip. The paint's gonna have to be redone.
Yep.
The pavilion or the pavilions, gazebos. Those they're things that are. We just continue to peck away at those and keep them looking great. So, and I would also ask you. Because some of us also work with local organizations who are willing to help. And we would ask you to maybe keep a list of things that we can go out and help with. I know Chris periodically has had people come and say, we have a volunteer project, open space. People are willing to help cut the trails. Or we had somebody last year, Mike, I think, volunteer to repaint one of the gazebos or power wash a gazebo. If you can keep those handy. There's Eagle Scout projects and people who are trying to do projects for volunteer work to put on their resumes. We would love to have something ready from you so that when they come up, we can also connect them with you.
Yep, and we're working with youth services from the Highway Park side for some of those students that need some volunteer work, need some credits to do some improvements in the parks. Could be minor stuff. They can't operate heavy equipment or anything like that. But yeah, relying on volunteers for some of our work is much needed. So
cool. Who else has questions?
Can I just?
Please, Val.
Just a quick statement. So Friday afternoon, I think it was Friday, large branch, felt like it was a tree almost, right across the street came down. And just want to give you kudos to your staff.
Yeah, staff got right out there. Yep.
Oh, I called Tracy and, because I didn't want our neighbors, they're a little bit more senior. I didn't want them going out there trying to drag this thing, into the yard. And the staff came, they were great. I went out to say hello and.
Great.
Yeah, they
Appreciate
were very
that.
good. So, yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Jen?
Oh, yeah, just a couple comments. Something that you didn't mention, but I just want to call out because in our transportation committee, I just want to recognize what an outstanding job that you did with the Calendar House. And
Thank you.
We were all astounded about the amount of transportation that was provided to our seniors, like one of our most vulnerable populations. And I think that had a lot to do with your management. And also to call out youth services in the STEPS program, they have continuously been at the forefront of prevention, which I think is building these assets and building a foundation so that they're creating a better culture in town. And I think those are two really important things that you've also done too. So
Thanks. Chris?
Just a general overview. This was very helpful, Dave. I'm sure we're all very familiar with a lot of the work, but there were some new things in here too that I wasn't quite as familiar with that you and these departments oversee. So just want to thank you for that. Hopefully, reflecting on everything you do is rewarding for you too to know the impact you're making in the town. And while you're here, just thank you especially. I know we've thanked you publicly before, and your workers especially. You mentioned in your report the rough winter we've had, but while we were all at home, safe, warm in our homes, your staff was out there doing the work, and it was more challenging this year than ever before. So thank you for the work.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, thanks, Dave. Yeah, you have a fabulous team, great
We do.
staff, highway, parks, calendar, house,
All.
rec, everybody, youth services. Kudos to all of you. I have one, I know you've been around a long time, but tell us one thing that, since you've stepped into your expanded role, that you've learned. What's one thing that, you went, oh, man, this is interesting. I maybe saw this from afar because I was in another department, but you're stepping into this new role, and now you have, what's one thing you've learned that you want to share with us as well? Yeah, why not? Come on.
Wow.
Come on.
The town is really big.
You said I've been around a long time, even though I haven't been working in those departments. I'm familiar with a lot of departments. Boy, you did put me on the spot. I would say with the highway parks, and it's not in a bad way, the amount of calls from the public that they deal with daily. Yeah, it could be it's not burdensome to the fact that we don't want the calls, but like I said, we could have days with 20 to 30 phone calls that we really got to tweak our schedule, and that adjusts things for the whole week, depending on what's needed. So I would say I didn't know the amount of calls and input from the public that we need to attend to on a daily basis.
That's great. It's good that you have a leader on your staff that's also willing to learn and adapt. Adaptability, agility is something that I think is important. We heard somebody come out at the Public Works meeting last week. You were there, who said that they had a very good experience calling in to. We heard Val talk about it, but we heard a resident say that they were very appreciative of the support that they got when they called in. So thanks. Thanks for everything you're doing, Dave.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Can you explain the Pythagorean theorem?
All right, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item 4, Southington Water Department Projects Presentation by Superintendent Douglas Arndt.
Good evening, I'm Doug Arndt from the Water Department. David was very thorough. I took the other avenue about putting it all on paper. You'll see some extensive ordinances, and really, this is all really the legal process that the town has to follow to provide the water department to be able to apply for a low-interest loan. So the process is not a water department. It's was established by bond council in recommendation of bond council to keep the town and the water department legal. Again, these are the projects that we've been talking about for a little bit of time. Last time I came before you, we were still getting the process down. And in all honesty, because of the length of the process, I brought the water main projects back into the same package with the well 10. So excuse me from last time not doing that, but the length of it is what we, if we were going to go through a process, bunch them all together and get it all done at one shop. Again, to review the projects, it's well 10 is one of the most highly productive wells in the state of Connecticut. It's situated next to our biggest producing well here in the town, now well number 9 on Dunham Place in northern Southington. And the other projects are driven by lead gooseneck removal, which is mandated by EPA and DPH. And all those projects are being funded 50% subsidized from the state, so they're number one, highly subsidized, and number two, the amounts that we'll ultimately borrow from the state will be at a 2% interest, low interest loan. So these are good opportunities, and the money up in the state is kind of first come from serve. So if you're late in line, you may be required to remove the lead in these older water mains that are typically connected to them without the additional funding. So we're really trying to hustle through the process, and that kind of explains all the required steps before you that are required to ultimately get the town council to approve the water department to enter in this low-interest loan.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Please, Mr. Town Manager.
So the town council is really here as a formality. The water department is not an entity that's able to take on its own debt. So the town of Sullyton takes on the debt. We issue the bonds on behalf of the water department. We enter into an agreement with the water department, which is one of the things that I'm asking you to vote on tonight, which the water department indemnifies us and pays all of the principal and interest through the life of the bonds. There's safeguards in there in place where the water department is securitized. We're securitizing their property in the event of a default. We can actually get water department's property back to secure that debt. So the reason we're here is we do all the back-end administrative work and Doug gets all the money. That's really how it boils down to.
And I should have added that these are projects that are 100% funded through the water department. We're responsible to pay back all the funds. There is no impact on the town's ability to bond their own projects. That was a major point that I had just clarifications with bond counsel. You know, it is, as the town manager just mentioned, a formality at this point. We will work all the costs into our rates.
So essentially, later in the agenda, we have 4 different bond ordinance introductions that we'll have to take up, and then 4 agreements between the town and the water department as well. Questions, Val?
Just briefly, so you had mentioned the removal of the lead. Is there a certain year that needs to be done by? Or it's just recommended?
Yeah, there's a mandate to have it done. There's a mandate to have, we were required to provide a inventory of all of our service lines, which would include all the ones that had lead now or previously by this past fall. By January of God forbid, January 2027 already, we're required to put a plan in place to have all the lead removed by 2035. So 2035 is the end date, but the state has available funding now, i.e. the subsidized project, and that money is first come, first serve. So these are the areas, and there's different areas in town that qualify for that. So these are the areas that we're really hustling to take advantage of.
Right, so that makes a lot of sense to be doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Any questions from the remote participants?
I'm good.
Okay. Hearing none, then thank you, Doug, for the
Okay.
presentation. We'll take that up later in the meeting.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Okay, let's move on to item 5, councilperson communications. Anybody? Councilperson communications? Tony?
Just a quick one. The chair, the town manager, and I attended the Chamber of Commerce breakfast meeting on Friday, and it was really nice to see it. It was fully attended by the businesses in town, and it was a presentation from the head of consumer protection, and he had an interesting point actually. He said his role was really for compliance. It wasn't for enforcement, which is I thought was an interesting comment, in which maybe others should take. But I'll leave the chair to talk more about it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Chris?
I got a couple things. I know with many people up here, I had the pleasure of attending the public hearing at the Palo 1 week ago tonight. So just want to thank the residents that came out for that. Thank the residents for speaking and sharing with us their opinions related to the budget. So I think it's helpful for us to get that feedback early on in the process. And again, want to thank everyone for participating in that. Also, some good news as we're talking about the budget from the state of Connecticut. At the House, through bipartisan approval, awarded $40 million to the statewide for special education funding. So what that equates to for the town of Southington is $653,705, and that's special ed funding specifically for the town of Southington. But that is for this current fiscal year, so the 24-25 fiscal year. However, you know, in consulting with the superintendent and hearing some of his statements, this is going to help with outplacements for students that might not have been able to stay home in Southington schools, excess special ed costs, and a shortfall from the budgeted projections. So again, I think it's going to be incredible to assist the Board of Education specifically related to funds needed for special education programming.
Thank you. Anybody else? Val,
Just one.
Please.
So I just want to give a shout out to the high school girls basketball team. They will be playing in the state semifinals on tomorrow night at 5:15 at Pomperog. And they've had a great year. They are 25-1, I believe. They were seeded second. They're playing Greenwich, who's the third seed. And I attended the quarterfinal game on Friday night, and they just, they shot the three like there was no tomorrow. So if they can shoot like that and press the way they have a really good shot to get to the finals. So just want to wish them the best of luck. And
Do you know anything about that program, Val?
just a little.
Just to piggyback on that, my son volunteers with the handicapped children in the high school.
Oh,
I forget what
Unified
it's called.
Sports.
Unified
Yes,
Sports.
Unified Sports, yes.
Yeah.
And if the Southington High School team does well and they go on to the championship game, the Mohegan Sun, there'll be a Unified Sports game at halftime.
And they will.
Yeah, Unified
attend it.
Sports
They
will go and they'll play
yes.
a short game at
Yes,
halftime.
which
so
would be awesome.
Fingers crossed, yeah. So
Yeah,
my
because
son's
the
excited to
finals
see
are
the
at
casino.
Mohegan Sun, which would be great.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
Awesome for them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Big time,
fabulous.
big time arena.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so tomorrow night,
Good
so
luck
just
to
be
them.
sending positive thoughts around 5:15, 5:30.
There's lots of support from the high school students too, my son.
There
they
is.
go to the games
Friday
and-
night, it was packed.
Yep.
For the
Val, will there be
quarterfinal.
a stream available
They
to people?
do stream it. They do, I didn't realize they did, but I think through the high school, I want to say some students, because I have a cousin in Florida who was watching it, and she saw me at the game. So, yeah, I guess they do stream it. So I think
If you can find out,
I'll try to
maybe we
find
can
it.
have it posted on the town manager's page.
I'll see if I can find out, Alex. It's tomorrow night, the game.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
Thanks. Great. Good luck to the girls.
yeah, good luck.
Looking forward to them taking it home. Anybody else? Yeah, a few of us attended the Chamber of Commerce. I thought that was really good, and I also noted the comments. I also noted it was interesting that he had said that on top of him, that his was more strategy, and he was not strategy but more implementation. And I thought that was quite interesting. But he talked a little bit about the role of government and really, him trying his best to minimize the impact of the role of government while being there to assist, sometimes even mediate issues and not necessarily be the heavy hand, but somebody who informs both businesses and consumers. And then also where maybe there is a crossover and there was a violation. Inform those who are violating so that there's an opportunity to rectify these situations before they formally have to be rectified. So I thought it was a really nice presentation. It was about 30 to 45 minutes, very informative, and the gentleman was very good to interact with. He was very personable, and hopefully we get more people like that to attend these presentations. I did, Chris, take note as well. The $40 million unfortunately won't help us in the next budget cycle. We do have there's a lot of activities. There's been some touch points for people we've seen some people come to the workshops. There's been a few at the Board of Education, at the Board of Finance. There's more discussions ongoing, some that are going to be also in the public that people will continue to have an opportunity to speak out. It's a tight budget season, and there's a lot of things happening all at once. A lot of different levers are being pulled. Some catch-ups from union contracts that maybe hadn't settled in since COVID, and so now some catch-up there because they were a little bit behind. A lot of these are kind of falling in at the same time, and so we see a significant increase in the requested spend. On the Board of Education side, we see, if I recall, something close to 90% is merely just contractual obligations for settled contracts, salaries, benefits, and also transportation and utility costs. So there's not a lot of wiggle room beyond that. And so, it's going to be an interesting budget cycle to see, where we can minimize the impact to the taxpayers and, without hurting services. So more to follow on that. Okay. Anybody remote want to chime in for councilperson communications?
No, I'm all set.
Okay. We're going to move on to item 6, report of special committees, transportation. Tony?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we had a couple of things from our meeting. We had 2 presentations on the 532 bus, the public bus, that currently runs along North Main and Queen Street. Connecticut Transit talked about the operational aspects of the route, which was mentioned last meeting. They believe there's an average of 150 riders per day, and they showed us October numbers. They had 157 riders per day, and I just got the January numbers today, which is 74. So there's a lot of oscillation. But the ridership numbers, to us, look very low. They said it was good for a new route, but, they still want to pursue extending the route, and they mentioned to Cheshire for a cross-regional connection, but they didn't have actual plans to do it yet. They said they would put up bus stops along the route. That was another question a while back. We asked for smaller buses on our roads, but Connecticut Trans only has a fleet of 40-foot buses. And we also stated to them that we didn't want the bus stopping randomly outside of bus stops, especially on North Main, where there's only one lane. Our chief of police has commented on the traffic disruptions it causes. CROG, which is the regional group of 38 municipalities, updated us on regional plans, because we're part of a 38 municipality regional group, Central Connecticut. They mentioned they were looking to do another study on public transport. There's an update on the one that was done like 7 years ago. I just say for this, our committee has a majority view, it's not unanimous, that the 532 bus is at best somewhat irrelevant to the needs of Southington. From the questions we posed, it's hard for us to understand how the state will continue with services that are costly and have relatively low ridership, and see more focus on the needs of connectivity through the town as opposed to our needs. The state's going to be under considerable cost pressure now the COVID money's gone, and we've seen that in the fact they develop initiatives such as educational voting, which have to be funded by us, the municipalities, and not the state. And there's also, starting to see cuts in various programs, such as the tax distribution that we lost $800K from our upcoming budget for that, $800,000, which is quite significant for us. So we're seeing whatever plans they have is one thing, and they're a little bit up in the air right now, but do they have the means to actually do it is another thing. So that brings us to the presentation we had from Senior Transportation Services, which closes out our inventory of transportation services available in Southington. We're now in the process of completing our marketing effort, which will market all our transportation capabilities to Southington residents as the best thing we can do right now. Informational flyers, cards with a QR code, page on the town website, it'll all be developed. We'll then communicate and distribute to all our essentially stakeholders, library, calendar house, Chamber of Commerce, Southington Housing Authority, etc. I'd like to thank 2 volunteers that are helping the effort outside of our committee, Diane Thompson from SOCA for the logo, and John Holgren for the layout of our flyers. Printing costs will be handled through the town council budget. So we're a very low budget outfit right now, and hopefully we didn't put any initiatives in for the next budget, but hopefully the year after that we'll be doing some stuff. That's it.
Thank you, Tony. Who has questions on transportation?
I just want to highlight
Jen.
the name of the campaign, and it's called Southington Rides. Southington Rides.
Excellent.
We have a logo.
Not get on the bus, Gus.
Nope, Southington Rides.
Who else has a comment or question about transportation? Wonderful. Thanks, Tony. Public Works, Mr. Del
A
Santo.
very lengthy report. I'm joking. A lot of my thunder was stolen tonight by Mr. Arndt and Mr. LaPre. But as Mr. LaPre mentioned, the amount of storms this year have been very difficult and very hard on the staff. 30 to 40 mailbox damages, which is very high. We don't usually get that many, but the snow was so heavy and the ice was so bad. We did have a young lady speak out at the last Public Works meeting that big boulders of ice were put in front of her driveway and her sidewalk right after she shoveled. So as I mentioned earlier, Mr. LaPre took that information and he's going to speak with his staff. Sometimes it's impossible to clear, after everything's been shoveled to, try to slow down at every driveway in town, but it still has to be in the back of their minds when they are traveling. A gentleman came and spoke. There are going to be 2 smart charging stations in the Bank of America parking lot, and the subcommittee was not too keen on the location of it would actually be 4 parking spaces because they put the devices in between 2 spaces, and where they selected these spaces was a real pinch point for heavy-duty parking, especially on the weekends, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. So we suggested for them to go back to the drawing board. It was originally planned to be further away. The gentleman said that Eversource preferred to do it in this location because it would be cheaper for them. So that didn't go over so well with the subcommittee for Eversource, as you would all imagine. So they are going to work on some other options and more to follow on that. And we did, for the first time, Mr. David Riccio sat in for the first time. He's the new building official in town, and they're cranking. They're doing a great job since he started. 75% of the past open permits have been closed, and I guess they're working on like the end of the year January permits now, which used to be 4 or 5 months behind. Now they're only 2 or 3 months behind. So, well, more to follow on that. Yes. And we talked about roads again. We did continue the matter. We tabled the matter for the final approval of the roads for an additional 30 days because there were some outstanding roads that could be added to the list with some of the higher PCI levels taken out. And the last thing we did is we had a unanimous rating to pick a new company to scan the roads. We think we can do a better job by having a second set of eyes take a look at the ratings that have happened over the past 3 or 4 years. So more to follow on that. Once the new company comes in, I'm sure there'll be lots of information to discuss. That's all I had.
Any questions for Public Works?
Now, comment. One of those mailboxes was mine. Thank you very much.
Dave, get to work.
Did you have anything, Jim? Anybody else? Anybody remote have any questions for Public Works or comments?
They may not be there anymore.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Sorry, I got disconnected while Mike was talking. I just want to just make sure that if we can maybe include in the meeting minutes the correspondence that I gave to the Public Works committee that was included in those meeting minutes, more specifically the emails that we received from a resident over on Russell Road. I think it would be very beneficial, to just kind of document that and, so the entire council sees it as well.
Okay, can we make sure that the communications from Public Works get to the town council, please? Okay, thank you, Mr. Perry. Anybody else? Okay, let's move on to Library Building Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The library project continues to roll to completion. Most people have seen that the old library is now down. All the rubble was removed from the foundation area. They did discover some older structures that had to be removed. Once all that stuff was removed, they put clean fill in and compacted it, and the corner is restored to a natural space. The outside patio area has been started, and it looks like we'll be still on budget, and we should be done before June. The anticipated completion was June, but it's looking like probably end of April. And that's my report.
Under budget and
Early.
a little early. I learned that that as they were removing the basement and they had to fill it, they had to compact it every foot. Every single foot it got compacted to ensure that, there was no settling and that they could put structure on top of it, all the other pavement and things that were going in. Any questions for Library Building Committee?
Just
Val?
quickly, so Jim, there's charging stations that will be at the library, right?
forgot when we decided on that. Do you remember?
Or is that,
We
there's some that are marked right now in the parking lot, but I'm wondering, will those stay there?
Last
or
year's budget was cut.
The building code requires us to put the conduit in, but not to put the actual stations in. So there's a plan in place per the Connecticut Building Code, but there are no actual charging stations there.
We cut that last year's budget.
Okay.
The only thing I'll say is I can't get used to the view. Coming down,
That's weird.
coming down North Main, not seeing that building there for 50 years. It's weird.
That's pretty cool. Okay.
I'd just like to say something on behalf of maybe Southington and the Library Building Committee, which is there are other towns that started library building projects around the same time we did. For instance, Bloomfield. And they did exactly the same year, I think, like Wallingford's and other. And they're behind. They're way behind us, okay, because they hesitated, they bumbled around. Because after COVID, during COVID, inflation went through the roof, and they were hit with the same issues we were, which was it was going to cost X for this. Now it's it's going to cost Y. But we didn't hesitate. We pushed the project through, which is a tribute to the Library Building Committee. And a tribute to the people who were on town council at the time. And it was. It's great to see us. We're nearly finished. I mean, we've moved into the library. Bloomfield is still struggling with theirs, although it is starting to move ahead now. So it's good when decisive management occurs and people get committed and a project gets done. And it's great to see it.
Nice. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Anybody remote on library
Yes,
building?
Mr. Chair.
Sure. Is that you, Jack?
Yes, that's me.
Please, go ahead.
So, you stated that, and obviously it's just because of my background doing patios and walls growing up in our family landscape business. I would just make sure that, even though they compacted, a foot is a lot to compact at one point in time unless it's 3/4 inch stone to try to get in that density. So my only recommendation is just make sure that a DCP test is done, which is a dynamic cone penetration on the soils, because the last thing we want to see, or the base of any structures or anything being done, because the last thing we want to see is things settle over the course of time. So that would be my only recommendation.
Sounds great. I know they brought in a giant. They actually oversized and brought in a large from Manafort, I believe, large asphalt rollers that were vibratory and compacting. So Jim heard you, Jack, and he's going to bring that back. I see he wrote a note, DCP tests for the building committee. So he'll take that back to the building committee and check into it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You got it. Anybody else on library building committee? Excellent. Open space.
Yes,
Jen.
so Mr. Chair, we had our open space meeting last Thursday on March 6th. And we've spent the last probably decade purchasing a lot of open space acreage, over 600 acres, I think we're up to now. And so I thought it was important to make sure that our committee is meaningful, and what we've focused on this past year is enhancing those spaces. And we just went through as a committee and documented those accomplishments from the past year. So I'll just quickly list them off so that you have them. And I want to thank Dave LaValle as well, because he's an integral part of getting all of this done. He's currently working on a new website, a new look for our open space. We had on the Leaf property a Farm Heritage History Tour. And on the Rogers Orchard property, we had the Farm Heritage History Tour as well, which was well attended. And those are important events so that we can bring awareness and notoriety to our local farms, which is very important. They work very hard to keep us sustained with food and vegetables. So also on Pleasant Street, the community garden, we partnered with Leaf to provide 10 by 20 beds for our residents. And so that was last spring and will continue this spring as well. And we have an approved plan to move forward with an agricultural science barn. That's going to be a great addition to that property. And the star of the show, the chickens and the farm stand. we might need those eggs, so so let's get
Oh, yeah.
prepared.
No rooster.
No, they're gone.
And then moving on to our train depot, we, with the help of Highway, cleared the parking lot to leverage more visitors in that area, secured the building and installed fire protection, and we're also working with a train group out of Wallingford to partner for more utilization of that space. On Novick Open Space, Deva Valley got us the trail grant for the footbridge that will make it possible for year-round hiking. And we've also are going to install a new sign there as well. On Curtis Open Space, we, as you know, installed the storyboard to commemorate the recognition of that historical space as well. And we continued our collaboration with Mr. Curtis to maintain that space, and also implemented the geocaching initiative as well. And then we continue our maintenance on numerous properties: Grosky, Upson Place, Pleasant, Holmquist, Johnson, Bradenburg, Inleaf. And then we also started our 2025 initiatives, which will be a social media campaign, including a Facebook and Instagram page. And we'd like to install some additional signage on key parcels as well. So just making sure that we're making good investments on our open spaces.
Excellent. Any question on open space? Okay, hearing none, I noticed that there is on our town home page, our landing page, there is a Southington Community Garden Association post. And when you click on that, it takes you to the area where you can find information about signing up for the community gardens. And we are currently accepting applications for the gardens right now. Is that correct? I see some smiles. Maybe not.
We may want to hold off a little bit. I've got a meeting set up with the Ag Science Department in the coming weeks, just because we're concerned with the construction that Jen just mentioned, we don't want to damage any gardens.
Maybe
there.
stay to
So-
one side.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
what we're trying to map everything out.
Okay.
So to be continued.
To be continued.
We just spoke about it
We
before
could
the
still
meeting.
accept the
That's why we're-
applications, right? And then.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Good.
why we're chuckling. We
More
just
to
talked
come.
about it together before the meeting.
Awesome. All right,
Stay
excellent.
tuned on that one.
Stay tuned. Okay, anything else on open space? Excellent. Let's move on to the revised item 7, Town Manager's Report and Communications.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, you had talked about the finance workshops. Tomorrow is the next Board of Finance public workshop. It's at 6:30. It's either downstairs in the conference room at Town Hall, 75 Main Street, or if the space opens up upstairs, we're going to move it to the Town Council chambers. There'll be someone posted at that door downstairs if it does move. So it'll be at Town Hall tomorrow, like 6:30. A lot of good questions are coming up with those. If I may, I'd like to jumble my A, my D, and my E together. We have a couple staff members here who have been patiently waiting, and I'd like to get them out as soon as possible. If that's
Sounds
okay,
good.
Mr. Chairman. So I'd like to bring up Mr. Grappone, and I'm going to have him speak about, well, Mr. Del Santo just threw some water on his first part of his presentation, but he can give a quick update on the charging station locations, and then we can talk about the Plantsville Pocket Park, which is slated to be finished this year, and then the Bank of America canopy proposal as well. Mr. Grappone.
Good evening. Concerning the charging stations, there was a contract that went before the council and was signed in for 2 locations. The first one is under construction for 2 charging stations at, I believe it's 716 Main Street, which is by Mark Lovely's building and the parking area over there.
The Plantsville Town Green.
Yep.
Yep.
So that's under construction. And as, excuse me, Mr. Del Santo said, there wasn't good receiving on the location downtown, so they were brought back to the drawing board to pick up another location. So there's more to follow. As soon as we get more information on that, that'll come before the Public Works Committee.
Okay, I think we're good on the charging stations, right? And no questions? Okay, thanks, Jim. Let's go on to item D, Plantsville Pocket Park.
Pocket Park, David Norris from our office had made some revisions to the plan under Paul's suggestion regarding the retaining wall. We made some enhancements to that for safety reasons. There is an easement in there for traffic, so we can't get too close to the roadway there. But we're just off the right-of-way as far back as we can within the town's portion of that property on the corner. So we're ready to go. We can go before planning and zoning for approval. The cost on the wall isn't going to be cheap, but we do have some money that was still in the budget for that pocket park. So we could pursue getting prices either under Easy IQC or bid it through some other means, but we can move forward on that whenever council feels ready.
And just for timeline, Mr. Capone believes that Paramount Construction will be demobilized in July. So that's when the timeframe should start working, because they're gonna be doing the South Main Street, finishing up the full depth pre-construction. And they should be done with that around end of April, May, and probably demobilized fully by July 1st.
That's right.
Good, so, I mean, it sounds like, maybe before we go to the final phase and we put it out to bid or Easy IQ, or both, if we can get a couple bids to balance the Easy IQ to make sure that it's the lowest. But before we do that, maybe send it to the council and we'll have a look at the next meeting at what the final looks like. It's pretty standard, it's similar to what's been talked about at Public Works, some modifications since we learned about the DOT easement, and Mr. Norris's suggestion on pushing that wall in a little bit, which I think is actually, it's gonna look nice.
Yeah, there'll be lighting, there'll be picnic tables, trash receptacle, things of that nature along with grass. So, the sky's the limit as far as what the use you want to have for that park, but.
We had it in our CapEx budget, so hopefully we can keep it within the budget. It doesn't look like it's gonna be so complicated, but let's see what we get. If you can, once David gets to a final draft, maybe send it to the town manager and then, indicating the lighting and all that.
Sure.
And then we get it to the council, we'll put it on the agenda for our next meeting for a review and thumbs up.
And the last thing Mr. Capone has is, if there's no questions, is the canopy removal proposal for 22 Main Street. Mr. Capone, do you have the bid, or do you need it?
I don't have the results, I'm sorry. I do know with that, we did get a price proposal using Easy IQC. Thank you. So again, using through the Gordian Group under Easy IQC, the bid that we did receive was $33,766.67. The items, I'm not sure if the proposal was included in the packet, but demoing the canopy and doing some repair work to the building for the way the structure is connected. Demoing 4 steel columns that were integrated to the canopy, disposal, patching. So we believe the scope is all-inclusive in there. So I'm not sure if we're ready to vote on that, but we did obtain one proposal.
So there is action item on the agenda. The
Yep.
council's have to decide if it wants to move forward with this process, because the council did vote previously that the canopy would have removed in one way or another. So Mr. Rapone's office was kind enough to go get a bidded price out for the town. So it's up to the council now if it wants to move ahead with this project or do some sort of an agreement with a potential buyer on the back end to remove it.
And I did speak to you about this, and you reached out to the real estate agent about his preference for whether he felt like it would be better, more advantageous for real estate value, for the resale value, if we did it before it was sold versus put it in escrow and had the purchaser do that. And the response?
He prefer to be taken down immediately, a lot cleaner and less complications for the potential bidders and buyers.
Okay, so we're going to talk about that later on in the agenda, so thanks for the update on that, Jim. Anything else for the town
Mr.
engineer?
Rapone, that's it. I
Thank
appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Jim. And you wanted to move, so we've done A, D, and E so far? And which
So-
one do you want to do now? B?
We can bring B, so.
CT House Bill 7067
Yes,
discussion.
Mrs. Babin, please. Our assessor and tax collector, Teresa Babin, is here. There's been a lot of back and forth, and as some of you have alluded today, the legislator and the governor have signed a lot of, I'd call emergency bills recently. And one of them gives the municipalities an option to I call it amortize the way the motor vehicles are depreciated in towns. And if you saw our original grand list, well, the state of Connecticut changed the depreciation schedule this year, and it hit us for about a $50 million loss of our grand list in motor vehicles. So they did a little emergency measures, and I'm going to let Teresa kind of speak much more eloquently than I can.
And it's not just Southington, it's pretty much every town across the state of Connecticut, yeah.
Hi, good evening. I wrote out my remarks, and I'm glad, because there's no way I would have remembered everything. So during the legislative session for the state in May of 2024, a statute was passed mandating the exemption of real estate taxes for permanently and totally disabled veterans. I know I'm not talking about motor vehicles yet, I'm sorry. So the language was effective for the 10/1/24 grand list. The language of the bill was contradictory, confusing, and it left it all but impossible for assessors to implement the language as written. The crux of the issue was tied to the fact that permanently and totally disabled veterans were rated at all types of percentage levels, anywhere from 60% to 100%. Although the intent of the law was to affect 100% disabled veterans, it didn't say that. And most towns, including Southington, were planning on providing the exemption to all permanently and totally disabled veterans, regardless of the percentage rating. And for Southington, that was 79 veterans in town. Our new 2024 grand list reflected this. The Connecticut Association of Assessing Officers implored the legislature to clean up the language during a special session to provide us with clearer direction, but they refused, instead passing early legislation this session. So there are now 16 disabled vets in Southington that no longer qualify for the exemption of taxes on their home. So our grand list will be increasing due to this change. So that's the real estate side. During that same legislative session in May 2024, a statute was passed which changed the way our motor vehicle tax was computed. It used to be based on market value times 70% to give us the assessment, then multiplied by the mill rate. When motor vehicle values saw an unprecedented increase in their market value due to the coronavirus pandemic and everybody in the state lost their minds, legislators debated changing the decades-old valuation technique and enacted changes to the statute that now call for using the vehicle MSRP and applying a 15-year straight-line depreciation schedule starting at 85% depreciation down to 15%. They had no idea, or at least an ill-informed idea, of how much that would affect municipal budgets. The average change indicated a 9% to 15% decrease in motor vehicle assessment using the new valuation technique. So the bill that contains correction language for the 100% permanently and totally disabled veterans also contains the language giving municipalities the option of using a modified depreciation schedule on the MSRP of motor vehicles, beginning instead at 90% and going down to 20%. If you choose this modified depreciation schedule, statute says you must vote on the matter and the outcome must be reported to the state. And once these decisions are made, statute language also gives me the ability to disregard my old grand list, adjust it, and republish it, but I have to do that no later than April 15th, so time is of the essence. I had a bunch of numbers, but I think it would just be too confusing. So I'm just going to say that the changes with the original signing of the grand list saw a change of, come on, of minus 6.2 million, rounding. So if we were to reopen the grand list and not only deal with the real estate section, but also the motor vehicle section. And by the way, that's also going to affect the personal property section, because on the personal property declaration, there's a space for unregistered motor vehicles. And we have about 92 personal property accounts that contain roughly 125 unregistered motor vehicles, some of which will also be affected by this new depreciation schedule. So it just opened up the whole grand list. If we were to make those changes to the real estate and the motor vehicle, I am unable to estimate the change to personal property. But instead of seeing a minus $6.2 million to our grand list, we're actually going to see an increase of 42 million. So that instead of a minus 0.13%, it's going to be an increase of almost 0.9%. Which translates to an approximate increase in revenue using this year's mill rate of conservative estimate is 1.2 million. Instead of losing almost $200,000 in tax revenue, we're going to be gaining that much more. So I can answer any questions.
Any questions? Yeah, please. Val?
So I just, in looking at this, the statute, we just have to be very careful. I know you have, Teresa, you're going to have deadlines. Like if we vote on this tonight, we have the 14-day, that form that we need
Yep,
to
to
get
notify
to
the state,
OPM,
yep.
Right. But we also have deadlines for the appeal process, right? For our, so we need to, residents need to know about this. They have to have their time
Yeah.
for an appeal on their assessment.
There was the Office of Legislative Review, not so much them, I'm sorry. It was the Motor Vehicle Committee for CAAO that sent an email that indicated they thought it was strange that they opened up the Board of Assessment Appeals timeline, because this is only affecting motor vehicle tax bills, really,
Right.
because the real estate value change it's state statute. If you're not 100% permanently and totally disabled, you do not qualify for
Right.
the exemption. There's really nothing to appeal in that case.
Right, so they have there's no appeal process?
It seems like the legislation is opening the door for them to appeal, but there's really no basis on which to appeal. So the association is still a little confused about that. In terms of motor vehicles, if they want to appeal the higher depreciation, those appeals aren't heard until September anyways.
Okay.
Because nobody knows what their motor vehicle bills are going to be until our mill rate is set.
Right.
So I'm not exactly sure. I have to do a little more, but yes, I am totally aware of the deadlines and the additional times that Board of Assessment Appeals has to meet. If we go, right now, we only have 9 appeals, and I don't know, what to tell you about
Because it changes
that.
all the deadlines, right, that you
Right.
typically have. It changes the typical dates.
For Board of Assessment
for Board of
Appeals, yes,
Assessment Appeals.
absolutely.
Right, okay. I just want to make sure we don't, do something that, we want to make sure that the residents have notice. Anybody who wants to make an appeal can make it, and, so we don't, nothing backfires on us.
Right.
on-
No, we don't want that to happen. We
No,
want it to be
no.
done by the book, so.
Right. It is a little, it's very confusing.
Oh, yes, it is.
Oh.
As it stands right now, Board of Assessment Appeals is scheduled to meet this Thursday from 4 to 8.
Okay.
So they'll be continuing to probably give some guidance. on
There,
this.
yeah, if it comes down that it's decided that, yeah, they have to open, regardless of whether, the question amongst the state association members is, it seems as if the new Board of Assessment Appeals timeline is not limited to just hear appeals related to these changes. It seems like now, anybody that wants
It's
to.
open for
Yeah.
anybody, right.
So.
Which, you're right.
Which
doesn't-
isn't
Doesn't
quite-
make sense.
Yeah.
No.
So we're working on that, but definitely we're on that. We have all the deadlines that you have too, so
Good.
we'll keep on it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Just a
please, Mike.
clarification. You had said, Teresa, that if there was a question of appeal, we'd have to vote on it. Who would vote on it?
There's
Us?
not a question, not the question
Oh.
of appeal. If I have to reopen the grand list real estate section
Gotcha.
to adjust for the change in those veterans, if you also want me to adjust the depreciation schedule that we've used on the 41,000 some odd vehicles that we've already priced, if you want to go that route, you have to vote on that.
Can we add that? I mean, we can make.
Yeah, we can add it as an agenda
I'll make a
item.
motion right now to add as a agenda.
Can you add it as a motion on the agenda right after I speak?
No. Nope.
That was worth a try.
Okay, so we have hold on one second. So we have a motion to add in old business an item number E, action on Connecticut House Bill 7067 for the modified automobile tax depreciation schedule.
Depreciation.
Depreciation, yes, depreciation schedule. So we have a motion to add it as an agenda topic for later in the meeting.
Second.
We have a second. And how about discussion on adding it as a topic? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion to add it as an agenda item for later under item E is approved. Back to you, Teresa.
That's all I have.
Any other questions? Any other questions for Teresa?
So just to go through again, so 1.2 million possibly, you don't, that's an estimate.
Yeah.
But there's also the unregistered cars that could add
Yeah.
more to that, right? The 125?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, which you have no estimate for this moment, right?
Correct.
Great, okay, thanks.
Yeah, I really think that the personal property changes that result, if you vote to move forward with this and change the depreciation schedule, I really think that the personal property section is gonna be the smallest difference.
Oh, okay.
You know, it'll be a small increase, but it's not gonna be the size of the increases we see on the other two types.
Get it, thanks.
Yeah.
I have a quick question for you, Teresa.
Sure.
So we know that there's an option to vote on the alternate depreciation schedule for automobiles. Is there any option for the municipalities to modify or go back to the way that we were planning on handling the veterans exemptions to afford them the exemption instead of having it taken away?
No, they've actually also indicated that there may be additional statutes passed or additional bills passed that would only affect the 25 grand list. But it's, in terms of the 24 grand list, this was the only change that was allowed. So there may be, going down the pike, additional tweaks to the statute, whether they open it up to all disabled, regardless of all permanently and totally disabled, regardless of the percentage, or whether there was talk also that they may also exempt the land, not just the dwelling.
Right.
So there's a bunch of things. I think it's still in a state of flux, and
Okay.
I don't know if they even really know what they want to do.
Right. And in the automobile part, you had mentioned that there was an original impact to our grand list of minus 6.2 million.
Mhm.
Then you said, under the alternate,
I'm sorry.
was it minus 62 or minus 6.2?
No.
Yeah, if you could just
Motor-
restate those numbers for me.
Yeah, motor vehicle was an additional decrease. I don't know if that was what I was saying. The original change in the motor vehicle grand list was minus $53.5 million in assessment.
Minus
I did misspeak. I'm sorry
53.5.
about that.
That's
yeah.
okay.
And I had it written down.
That's okay. And then the new
And so
one?
now the new one is going to be only minus 6.7 million. I did say something about that.
Okay. And do you have any sense, before the legislation, if none of this legislation occurred, if none of it occurred?
None of it.
Do you have any idea of, you know, would it be higher, you know, would it be more negative than 53.5 or more positive than 6.7?
Do you mean if we continue to value vehicles based on market value?
Before this
Yeah.
legislation even,
So I can tell you that the valuation, I have so many papers, I apologize. So 2023 was 523 million for motor vehicle assessment. I can tell you, based on what I saw in the grand list this year with all of the new vehicles in town and the new types of vehicles in town, we would have been seeing a healthy increase
okay.
in motor vehicle assessment, healthy.
So this alternative is somewhere between the prior to new legislation
Yeah.
and the significant negative impact to the new legislation. It's
Yeah.
kind of a middle ground.
Yeah.
Understood. Okay. So it could have been like 50 million plus, but the new legislation made it 50 million minus, and now this is bringing us back to somewhere around zero or minus 6 million. Okay.
Yep.
Understood. Okay. Any other questions?
I'm here all night.
Hey, I think we're here all night. You're about to leave.
Just a little levity.
Okay, and I don't think, we have Teresa, we don't need Teresa for later on, right?
Sure?
Everybody have
I don't
enough
to stay
questions?
for
We
the
can,
vote?
we can
Will
release you.
let
You
me
don't
know
need to.
tomorrow morning? Okay.
If we
cool.
need to get you on the phone, Alex will call you, but I don't think we do.
All right, very cool. Thank you.
Thanks for coming and waiting. Okay, Mr. Town Manager, you still have another update or
I want to
two.
go to Charlie. On this past Thursday, we had town-wide town managerial training. So as you've seen, we've had a lot of new faces that you've seen at the town council for our department heads. So we thought it'd be prudent to kind of give everybody, the folks who've been there for quite some time. Teresa was on a cruise, so she decided to play hooky. But the people who've been around for some time got a refresher. And some of those new department heads and their deputies got a lesson on just the rules. We live in a very highly unionized state, so there's a lot of intricacies that go about how we manage our folks. So we had our labor law firm come in, and we had a good half day of training, questions and answers, and almost a little bit of leadership as well. It was a really, really good class. Everybody enjoyed it and took a lot out of it. So that was last week. And everything else on my agenda has been spoken about. Mr. Arndt from the Water Department, you've got F there and G. Doug spoke in pretty good detail about what he's doing there. Those are the bonds that are listed out individually that should need to be voted on. And then there are accompanying agreements, which say that the water department is going to pay the town of Sullyton for all costs associated with these bonds. I should note the reason why there's no referendum voting on these, even though the town is the sponsor, is in the charter and in the bond language. The town is actually not the primary obligee, it's the water department. So that's why, if you were wondering why there's no referendum, that is why. And we've done this dozens of times, as you may expect. We did it for the housing authority just this last year. So we do it for all the local agencies. Speaking of which, the housing authority was at the training as well. They had a very nice time. So housing authority, we also invited the water department. A lot of folks came.
The town council will invite.
Okay, any questions on the bond ordinances for the water department or the contracts for the bond projects? F and G?
I will
No?
turn it over to the town
I
manager.
have actually a couple additional items to ask you. You gave us an update last time on the building department, and I know Mike talked about it. As far as permitting, will you come maybe the next meeting?
Updates?
With updates on how we're looking? Fingers are crossed that at the end of March, we'll be pretty close to caught up, right?
We should be caught up this week.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Okay, keep us posted. And I think a meeting or two ago, you talked about the paychecks rollout,
Yes.
and you had said the first one or two, there was a couple bumps in the road. Can you tell us how the third one went?
We did have a couple bumps the first two. The third one went spectacular. There was one person, the fire department, who had a glitch. But the police chief made it very clear that it was a fire department glitch, so he took responsibility for it. Kudos to him. That firefighter will be made whole the next payroll run, but it went really good. The town staff are really starting to see the time savings now. Huge, humongous time savings every single week. We did just roll out the recruitment portion of it. So if you go to southington.org under Human Resources, there's a link to our new recruiting portal. We previously shared it with the Board of Education. They've got a portal called Frontline. It works well, but it's a little antiquated compared to what we have now. Our new portal pumps out all the job postings to all the boards. So when our HR department posts a job, it gets pushed out to Indeed, LinkedIn, all of them. So it's kind of, it's a one-click does it all. We don't need to do all that extra manual labor. And then when the folks do apply, so say Mr. Palmeri is going to apply for a job this summer. When he goes in there and applies, all of his information that he inputs gets fed into the system. And then when we onboard him for his job, it just feeds through. So instead of filling out paper and 3 different people putting it in, it's automated, it's streamlined. And then when end of the summer comes off and we offboard him, we automate the offboarding as well. So it's a whole life cycle, soup to nuts, making everyone's life a lot easier and more secure. All the paperwork, all the documentation is housed. We don't miss any documents anymore for all of our policies like sexual harassment and violence. We make sure every employee is tracked. And starting in April, we are going live with our employee reviews and performance plans. So we're gonna start rolling those out from the bottom up and making sure people start implementing and getting the reviews that they deserve. The employees deserve to know what they're doing good, what they can improve on, and so that's starting very, very soon.
Good stuff. Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Let's move on to the revised item 8, Town Attorney's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know Doug was here earlier. He gave a pretty detailed presentation of what the Water Department is doing. I think most of you know, and it was clarified once before, that the Water Department is a quasi-public, quasi-private entity. They can't bond, don't have the authority to bond, which is why the town is the one that is ultimately the bearer of the bond, no pun intended. So I know that much of the work has already been presented to Planning and Zoning. There's an action item on for tonight for an 824 referral. Assuming that that passes through, I know that the well number 10, I believe it is, has not been reviewed yet. But once, assuming that the town council makes the referral, this will get rolling along so the bonding can get in place. Any questions?
Any questions for the town attorney?
That's a quick one.
Excellent. Okay. We are going to move on to the revised item 9, public communications. If there's anybody here who would like to speak, come on up to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Okay, going twice? No? Excellent. All right. Hearing none, we will close public communications and move on to old business. The new revised item 10, old business. We are looking for a decision on item A, action on 22 Main Street canopy removal, for which the town manager presented the EasyIQ bid. EasyIQC, I believe it's called.
EasyIQ. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to go ahead and take that canopy down.
Okay, we have a motion to fund the canopy with the bid.
Second?
We have a second. Let's open it up for discussion. Why don't we, if it's okay, can I check with the remote participants and just ask them, is there anybody remote who would like to comment on old business A, action on 22 Main Street canopy removal proposal that we had the town manager present the EasyIQC bid on?
No for me. No.
Okay, anybody on the dais? Chris?
Just, Paul, I know you and I had a discussion. I think we've made a decision that we're going to remove the canopy. We made a decision that we want to sell the property and recoup some money for the town. I think this is the best option per the real estate agent to market that property. So to get rid of the piece that's undesirable, not put it on someone that's going to purchase the property and tease them with, it's there now, but you can't have it, you know, and you have to pay to remove it. So I'm glad we have a bid for this through that process to streamline it a little bit, and I think it's the right thing to do.
And can you, as far as the funding to the town manager, do you have the funds to do it in this current budget cycle?
I'm going to find the funds.
Okay.
And we'll bring those to the Board of Finance.
Okay, but you're not going to put us over budget for the year,
No,
right?
no,
Okay,
no, I'm
good.
not.
So we'll need an appropriation from wherever, yep, okay. Any other discussion from the dais? Okay, I agree as well. I think, I think it's, we heard from the real estate agent that it's going to be easier to market. We'll retain the value, et cetera. So we'll maximize our chance to maximize the return that we get on this property. Hopefully replace some of our reserve funds that we used on this. Okay, so Madam Clerk, why don't we call the roll on it?
Clock,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Dietzick,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
No.
Chaplinsky.
Yes, motion passes 8-1. Moving on to item B. And please excuse me, everybody, I have to read these into the record since we are talking about bonds. I have to read each one into the record, and then, Madam Clerk, we're going to call the roll on each one as well, okay? So item B, action on referral of 8-24 to Planning and Zoning for Southington Water Department bonding projects. Item number 1 is the ordinance appropriation of $3,586,730.10 for costs related to the design and construction of a new treatment plant for the Southington Water Department well number 10, and authorizing the issuance of $3,586,730.10 of bonds, notes, temporary notes, and other obligations to finance the appropriation. We're looking for a motion to send it to Planning and Zoning for an
Motion
824.
to approve is presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Clock,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Dietzick,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky.
Yes, motion passes unanimously. Item 2, ordinance appropriation of $3,500,000 for costs related to the design and construction of notes, temporary notes, and other obligations to finance the appropriation ordinance appropriating $3,500,000 for costs related to the design and construction of lead gooseneck and water main replacements, Phase 1, and authorizing the issuance of $3,500,000 bonds, notes, temporary notes, and other obligations to finance the appropriation.
Motion to approve is presented, and you skipped number 2.
You skipped number 2.
My apologies. So with that, we'll do 3 first, yep.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on item 3, referring it to Planning and Zoning for an 824. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Clock,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Dietzick,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky.
Yes, motion passes unanimously for item 3. Back to item 2. Ordinance appropriating $3,500,000 for costs related to the design and construction of full year 2024 water main improvements and authorizing the issuance of $3,500,000 in bonds, notes, temporary notes, and other obligations to finance the appropriation.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move a referral 824 to Planning and Zoning. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Clock,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Dietzick,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky.
Yes, motion passes unanimously 9-0. Item 4, also an 824 referral to Planning and Zoning, is ordinance appropriating $3,500,000 for costs related to the design and construction of lead gooseneck and water main replacement Phase 2, and authorizing the issuance of $3,500,000 in bonds, notes, temporary notes, and other obligations to finance the appropriation.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by the chair, the vice chair. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Clock,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Dietzick,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky.
Yes, motion passes unanimously. Now, Mr. Town Manager, this one is action on referral for public hearing to the Board of Finance, item C. So we are referring this to the Board of Finance, correct? So action on referral for public hearing to Board of Finance for Southington Water Department bonding projects.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to refer the 4 projects that previously approved to the Board of Finance to set a public hearing.
Second.
So we have items 1, 2, 3, and 4 for public hearing at the Board of Finance. Any discussion on all 4? Okay, why don't we call the roll on all 4? We'll do them all at once with the motion. Do we have a second on it?
Yes.
We did have a second. Okay, good. Call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Clock?
Yes.
Del Santo?
Yes.
DiPaolo?
Yes?
Dietzick?
Yes.
Morelli?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Palmieri?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Chaplinsky?
Yes, motion passes 9-0. Okay, can we do the same thing? Is there any issue with scheduling the public hearing and all 4 at once? Okay, so what we have is all 4 of the same topics. We're going to do item D, action on scheduling a public hearing for Southington Water Department bonding projects here at council, correct? And that's going to be proposed for March 24, 2025?
So moved, Mr.
Hold on one second. Just, are we confirming that?
Let's do April 14th.
Okay, so the proposal by the town manager is for April 14th, 2025, 7 PM. And
If I may add, for the 4 items the council's already voted on.
for the 4 items, we just voted to send to Board of Finance. It will come back to us, and we have to have the public hearing.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for the scheduling of public hearings here at Town Council for the 4 Southington Water Department bonding projects we just spoke about, 7 PM on April the 14th, correct? Just double check, April 14th, 2025. Okay. Any discussion? Okay, call the roll, Madam Clerk, on all 4.
Clock?
Yes.
Del Santo?
Yes.
DiPaolo?
Yes?
Dietzick?
Yes.
Morelli?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Palmieri?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Chaplinsky?
Yes, motion passes unanimously to schedule the public hearings here at Town Council. Item E, action on Connecticut House Bill 7067, which is the alternate auto depreciation schedule for municipalities. We just heard the presentation from Mrs. Babin through the town manager. Anybody want to?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair, that we change the rate from 85% to 90. From 85% to 90.
Yeah, we only have one option. We go with the alternate
That's it.
depreciation schedule.
Second?
We have a second from Councilwoman DiPaolo. How about some discussion on that? Anybody? Anybody remote have any discussion? Okay.
No. Nope.
Okay, hearing none, please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Clock?
Yes.
Del Santo?
Yes.
DiPaolo?
Yes?
Dietzick?
Yes.
Morelli?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Palmieri?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Chaplinsky?
Yes, motion passes unanimously on item E. Moving on to item number 11, revised 11, new business tax refunds, item A. Anybody?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the tax refunds that are presented in our packet.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the tax refunds? I think there's a couple of them, right? Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. I'm now looking for a motion for item number 12, to move into executive session for pending litigation under Connecticut General Statutes 1-206B, which is going to include the town council, the town manager, the town attorney, and our attorneys who are representing us,
Lydia Mickles and Thomas Gerard.
and excluding the public and the press.
So moved, Mr.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we are now moving into executive session. It is 9:29.
Good night, everyone.